Recently, there was a Doom Behind Closed Doors event that I wasn't at. So I brought on two of my friends who were there, Khalif Adams and Colt Eastwood. Khalif, how are you doing today? And then Colt, how are you doing?
Doing well. Excited to be here and rocking with you. It's been a minute. It's been a minute since we've been on camera together. So I'm excited to be here and getting to rock with Colt. It's even better.
It has been. I'm really, really happy to see you both. Colt, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing really well. It's funny. I haven't really thought much about Doom because we're set to do this preview for your video and the embargo. So I'm just kind of on pins and needles to start talking about what we got to play.
Yeah. Well, why don't we kick it off with you? What did you think overall?
Man, I've loved the new Doom games. So I had little middling complaints about Eternal. I love that game, but they kind of knocked all those out of the way to make way for more fun, front-facing aggressive gameplay. And there's a lot to dive into, and they gave us a ton of time to play. So I don't want to jump all the way to the end because there's a lot to cover.
Khalif, what are your overall thoughts, real quick?
I mean, really excited for what this game is going to wind up being. I think a lot of the conversations that we had, at least hearing from the team and their kind of philosophy around what they're trying to do with this game, I think they're really nailing a ton of it. And it feels like, that conversation of is Doom still relevant and really good? The answer is yes, in a big way.
Would you say the team cooked with this one?
I would say that they definitely cooked, unlike some people that we know.
Yeah. I'm glad somebody on the panel cooked today.
I love it.
Cooked well. I screwed that joke up. Anyway, how's combat going in terms of stand and fight? That was the big marketing push that they're talking about. Khalif, how does it translate versus the other two?
I think this one is a lot more melee focused in ways that I didn't expect. I think besides the kind of different weaponry that you get, whether we'll talk a little bit about later, I think the usual understanding of what this game is trying to do from a horizontal plane perspective, I think, is really important because it puts you in a space where you're not only trying to think about the kind of bullet hell version that you're usually running through, but you're also trying to get into close quarters combat with a lot of these characters so that you can take them down, do executions and things like that. So I feel like the melee stuff is really coming through in a way that I didn't expect, but it's really good.
Colt, stand and fight. It's the big marketing term that they're pushing for this one. Did they pull it off? Does it work versus the frenetic combat of Eternal?
Yeah, they told us when you face the big enemies to stand and fight. And, Khalif says it's a bullet hell. And it really is. You maneuver the battlefield horizontally. He said it so perfectly when you're talking. I'm just shaking my head. Of course. Because you get this Doom 1, Doom 2 experience where the projectiles are on a, face level coming at you. And you're kind of moving left and right and you're strafing. And the stand and fight things he moves so fast in this game. I didn't, I thought it looked like they slowed it down when I saw that at the developer direct. It looked like that Doom guy kind of slowed down, but he moves quickly forward and into the battlefield, and then you're moving out of the way of projectiles. But the stand and fight thing is the traditional games that have really started to kick off over the past several years, like the Dark Souls games. This is going to be kind of a crazy comparison, but like Elden Ring and games like that, it's really all about getting ready and parrying right on time and stunning your enemy. And that's what you do. You run into the battlefield, you're moving out of the way of projectiles, you get in close while you're firing, so you're firing while you're moving in, and then they come at you with this attack, and there's like a church bell sound, bong, and the enemies just come back, and you come back to this 2016 Doom and Doom Eternal glory kill thing, but you're doing it all organically. So you run into the battle, you're moving out of the way of projectiles while you're firing, and then you do this hard parry that stuns them, and then you do this brutal kill that is all dependent on what weapon you're holding, or there's different melee weapons. Yeah, it's just a great feel of just slamming your enemy back so you can take them down.
Speaking of weapons, one thing I loved seeing was the chainsaw shield that you're going to rev up and obviously utilize in combat. We see it in some of the footage. Khalif, how do you like the shield? Is it working for you?
I think it changes the way this game plays in a fundamental way. I think the idea of what this shield was, when you think of shields in most combat or most games, you're like, I'm going to hold this up, it's going to deflect bullets and then potentially anything that comes in close. But the thing that really surprised me was not only how versatile it was in terms of both, finding good ways to kind of get into range with combat, but it was something where the level ups on that and power ups on that thing actually like expand its move set in a way to kind of broaden out what you can do with it. I'm really, really happy with what they've kind of put into the game on that end, and think that I'm excited to see further down the road what people do when you kind of get into those videos when folks are like, I'm going to try to beat this as fast as I can. It's going to be cool to see how folks are using that and utilizing it in battle.
Beyond the shield, was there a favorite weapon that you really found yourself enjoying?
I mean, they have a couple of plasma guns that I thought were really smart in there, and I think the one that they showcased a ton in a lot of the promo material, one where you're kind of grinding up a skull, and that's your ammunition, like that stuff. Just visually, it just looks really, really cool, especially on the rigs that we were playing on. So, yeah, the weapon stuff is beyond what you had thought in terms of conversations that you usually think of when it comes to Doom.
There's like a railgun that kind of reminded me of the original Quake game, but it shoots a lot faster. And I was using that a bunch. Of course, the super shotgun, the double barrel shotgun was amazing. But yeah, I really like the weaponry. And some of the guns shoot really fast and some shoot slower. So they only we got access to a bunch of parts of the game, which we'll get into. But we kind of got access to about maybe 4 or 5 weapons within that build. But there's much, much more that we got to do. So
yeah, it was a ton.
There were moments where it seemed like the game was larger than life because you got to take control of like a giant mech version of yourself. Can either of you explain to me how all of that's happening? Like, is that a robot? Like, what is it?
Yeah, Colt.
Yeah, the cool thing about the preview we went to in LA was they sat us down, Marty and Hugo, and they said, we're going to give you slices of the game. They had this graphic, said, we're going to give you basically a whole level of the first level. We're going to give you a little piece of the Titan, which is the mech, and we'll give you a bigger piece of the dragon, which we'll get into in a second. And then we're going to give you free reign on this one level that has a bunch of stuff. We'll get into that. But the Titan, I didn't realize how big this was because Doom Guy walks in and he's like this big if he was in a human. And they slow down the movement. So all of a sudden the map is small. You're big. You're like moving like this. You're just a giant Titan. And you're just punching through structures, and you're doing the parry mechanic as this giant mech. It was great. Yeah, it felt great.
How'd you feel about the destruction and the slowdown? Like, does it work for you?
Yeah, I think, you go in with expectations once you see the videos initially, and you're like, all right, what is this going to feel like when you start to actually play it? And at first, I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed. I was like, this is all that's here is kind of walking through like Godzilla and beating up stuff and punching things. It felt like that. And then a drop pod hits the ground and you get a gun on the back of your big Titan. That's when everything ramps up to 10, because then you're like bullet howling through all of the enemies that are there, and it's like the parry mechanic then comes into a whole other level of leveling up and powering up your gun. It is super, super cool once you get the gun parts on the Titan. It really changes the way that plays.
Yeah, and they're also, so I have to add in, I forgot, they're also dropping in like the larger life enemies, these big beasts that you wouldn't be able to take on as Doom Guy, but once you're in the mech, then you're kind of going like, blow to blow against these big enemies, and that's, it gives this pretty... And that was such a short segment. It felt like it was about 10, maybe 12 minutes, and then they stop it, and then they load you into the next thing. I was like, what? Yeah.
Yeah, and Colt, you brought up the dragon riding like this cool, I don't know, he's got like electrified wings or shield wings or something like that. The thing looks sick, and it really exposes how large the world is because you fly around in this thing and land at different locations. Tell me about, like, does it work really well? Does it feel intuitive? What were your impressions of the dragon?
It was, it's going to be a weird comparison, but it really reminded me of the joy I got when I first played Transformers Cybertron and the Fallen War of Cybertron, because you kind of like, you're flying, but there's like the flying segments in those games, but when you're flying, you're kind of circle strafing and shooting like out over your shoulder. There's a moment where you're flying around these ships and you have to take them out and shoot out their guns, their sentry guns. and then blow up the whole ship and bring it down. And you're kind of doing that. I'm trying to remember what game this was, Khalif. These games where you're circling around, you're like out like at a 45-degree angle, and that's really cool. When you're flying fast, it's pretty easy to control. The dragon can fly pretty slow at times, but that was a really large segment. I was pretty sure they gave us like over 30 minutes to fly around and take out different segments of this. You're supposed to fly this dragon around and take out different towers until you could get like into the castle. So you're swooping up and down and around, and that felt pretty cool. I saw it as a big pace breaker. Like if you're getting tired of doing all the on the foot stuff, you get to. They're mixing it up in the game because they said it isn't a one-off. The Titan and the dragon. I don't even remember what they called the dragon. We're going to call it the dragon for this show until Khalif remembers.
It is the dragon.
Yeah, that and that breathing fire down the throat of the beast is like a finishing move. So they said that's not a one-off. This is like part of the pacing of the game. You're on the ground, you're in the air, you're in the Titan, and so on. So,
Khalif, what were your thoughts? Did you like it?
It was my most surprising part of the game, actually, and actually one of my favorite parts of the game. As a person who genuinely hates flying parts of games, it's not the thing I usually like because, the controls are usually not that good, and they always feel a little bit off. They always kind of feel tacked on to the experience. This feels really, really fun. I think when I got a chance to talk to some of the team, they talked a little bit about, like, we want to make this feel simple but rewarding. And that's kind of the perfect kind of analogy or perfect way to kind of talk about the experience was, having that feeling of being above the ground and kind of flying through these airspaces. And then the thing I didn't understand and didn't know until we got on, because I was stuck for a minute. I was like, I'm shooting these things and they're not blowing up and they're not doing the thing. And then you go in and you land on the ship and then you're going into the ship and those are like full levels that are outside of the usual flying part. So it feels like you're in a kind of normal Doom level again, but you're doing that having infiltrated the ship and gone into it and doing that multiple times. That was the part that blew me away, where I was like, oh, wait a minute. These are not just flying sections. These is like full on levels where you're fighting enemies inside of them and doing that stuff. It was really cool. And getting a chance to understand what they're trying to do with it really brought it home. But I had a blast with that part for sure.
We've talked about the core combat mechanics, some of the weapons, the Rock'em Sock'em robots, the dragon flying. This game is doing a lot of different stuff. How did it feel in terms of enemy variety? Was there a lot of different enemy types, or did they have to sacrifice that at all to make all of these mechanics work together?
You want to take that first, Cole? Or?
Yeah, I feel like it's just like I remember from Eternal. You have your foot soldiers, your a little bit bigger foot soldiers, and then you have your the Mancubus, and so I saw a lot of the same enemies. So I didn't see a big variety when I'm remembering back of what we played. Just kind of the same thing I saw from Doom Eternal. No Marauders. I was really happy that in our playthrough there were no Marauders. Maybe they're in the game, but I was glad during that time I didn't have to be dripping with sweat while the playthrough session was going.
Yeah, right? I think there was a couple of enemies that stood out for me besides the usual Mancubus ones and things like that. I think they had kind of mini Titans that were there. Those are the kind of, you need to melee those to really get them to wear down. I think there were some shielded imps that were in the space that I thought changed up the way the game played a lot and made you change up which weapons you use. And sometimes, if you didn't have the right weapon, if you had the correct kind of shield bash, you'd be able to break through those and then get to the actual enemies to kill them. I think enemy variety was good enough in terms of how those enemies maneuver and what those enemies are trying to do in the battlefield. I think that's a better understanding of not only, breadth and depth of how many are on screen, which are a lot, especially during the siege missions, but the ways that we think about their usual combat styles are different than what they were in previous games. They're doing some different and interesting things there that take a lot of strategy in terms of trying to figure out which groups you're going to take out first, and then kind of move on to the next ones to get yourself out of situations. So it was really good in that respect.
You mentioned that there are different enemy types for different type of situations. I am a little curious about the overall sandbox, the overall world design.
Yeah.
Did you find yourself seeing different types of areas or different types of locations, or does it all look sort of samey, or did they do a good job with the variety to break things up?
I think in the siege areas was a spot where you got a chance to see a little bit more of different places. Like, you know, you can go underwater in some of these sections. There are places that you have to get up fairly high. You know, I think that what they did in terms of building the world around the play space was really, really fantastic, because you were thinking about it in terms of, all right, what parts of this larger map am I needing to go to, not only for power-ups, to kind of clear space, to look around for exploration, which is a big part of this game in a way that it wasn't in previous games. So I think, you know, them opening up the play space and talking about how large it is this time actually does provide some value there in a much bigger way than we saw in the previous games.
Cool.
I love that the Super Mario Brothers parkour stuff isn't in Doom: The Dark Ages. There are moments where there are walls that are scratched where he'll go clap, 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 and he's up the top, and that's it. So you're not doing like these double jumps and things like that, or trying to avoid a lot of different gauntlets. There are some gauntlets in the game. So the verticality of the game is very limited to, I can go up there real quick and do this, and then jump down on these guys and do that. So the siege level that Khalif was talking about was like a big oval map. If I would have zoomed out and looked at the 3D map in there, it was just wide open. You're not going to get lost in Doom: The Dark Ages. I don't feel like, from what we played. So you talked about the siege mission. I think this is something that's going to reoccur a couple times in the game, where it's just a wide battlefield and the enemies are everywhere. There is a combat mechanic that I didn't understand at first, and Khalif might remember the word, but there'll be like a captain, and you have to kill all of his minions, or else he will stay purple shielded. You can hit him as many times with as many heavy attacks as you want, and he won't take hardly any damage at all. Like, his damage is like 90% protected until you kill all of the minions around him. And once you do, it's weakened him. I can't remember what the word was. And then you can get in and start taking one of these mini bosses down. And they were doing that within the siege level. You had a bunch of enemies to take on, and then you had a bunch of these like captains that were protected by their guys that are like, nope. So that was pretty cool. And when I was playing, I kept messing up, and Marty came over and Marty Stratton tapped on my shoulder, and I was like, what? He goes, hey, you need to take out all the guys, or you're not going to be able to do that. Whatever the word was, I'm going to have to look it up before I do the preview video. But yeah, and I was like, oh, and I felt pretty dumb. But another thing that
it's not like a legendary creator corrected you or anything like that. So
I know.
It's not that embarrassing.
He's looking over the shoulder like this guy calls himself a gamer, huh? So either that or Colt wasn't listening during the briefing. So yeah, that was pretty awesome. Another thing, the railgun I was talking about, the very first level, there's like the music. The music's great. Music's what you would expect, even though you don't have the legendary there. But
well, let's hold on that for a second, because Mick Gordon, very, very hard to live up to. A fantastic musical talent. Obviously, the company and Mick had a big falling out, and now we have a new soundtrack. Does it hit those heavy metal notes that Mick was able to hit?
1,000%. 1,000%.
It does?
Oh,
yeah?
1,000%. Yeah, like the feeling of getting into a big battle and that music hits, it makes you want to just run through walls. It is fantastic in the way that they put that stuff in, and they do a really smart job of of putting it in very specific spots too. It's not a thing that feels like it's a constant. So you're getting that ebb and flow of where the music is kind of pushing you along to do more stuff. So they're nailing it for sure.
Cool.
Yeah. The nail gun was firing at the same beats per minute as the music. And I asked Marty, I was like, did you know the railgun was firing at the beats per minute of the music? And he goes, oh, I didn't notice that. But throughout the rest of the playthrough, it wasn't like just that one song. Every time I shot, it was and it just had this like super joy of reminding me of that game that came out that was all about the rhythm. I forgot what it was called. But anyway.
Doom Eternal.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
All about the rhythm. Doom Eternal.
Metal Hellsinger.
Metal Hellsinger, that's the
Yeah,
one.
Metal
Yeah.
Hellsinger,
It
yeah,
reminded
yeah.
me of that, but that was just in that first level. But yeah, the
Got it.
music's really good. Really.
Yeah.
I got to ask you about the flail. So like that's an interesting mechanic. Did you find yourself using it a lot, or
Yep.
yeah?
All the time. All the time. I mean, I think, again, they built out a more kind of robust melee weapon suite for you to kind of go through. And the flail is super fun because it feels like you're tossing that thing around and swinging it around you to kind of to bop people on the head with it, basically. But it feels good. Like, I think the flail is really interesting. Colt, did you get a chance to check out that gun that basically you're like shooting a hook out? It's almost like you're shooting like a hook or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I tried it a little bit, and I kept missing enemies with it. But yeah, I stuck to the quick firing ones.
Yeah.
But the flail was awesome. I'm trying to remember what we started with. I think we started the shield saw. You could hold it, like Khalif said. You can hold it, and it's blocking bullets. But there's orange and green projectiles that come at you. And the orange ones you can just hold and block, but you're waiting for the green projectiles. And then as soon as they get there, you bring the shield up, and there's that church bell ring, and it bounces back and hits the enemies and rips them apart, and that's a really great feel. So it took a while before we could throw that, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the flail came toward the end on the last level, I think, toward the end of the playthrough, and we got to play for like, what was it? 2 hours or
yeah, a couple
more?
hours. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, they did not hold back. They let us play a lot, but the flail felt great, and you're kind of doing these glory kills with this gigantic melee weapon. So I really like that as well.
Yeah, the glory kill system has gotten a change, which I thought was interesting. Because at first I was like, is it still in here? Like I wasn't able to do the kills that I was expecting to do. Because remember, it was very context based. So you could like look at a specific part of the body, and it would give you a different kill. And I was talking to the team, and they was like, "Oh, well, we like that mechanic, but what we wanted to do is to make you feel more immediate. We wanted those to feel immediate, so that you're not just sitting there watching an animation for like another 30 seconds.
Yes.
To go through the whole process of getting those glory kills. I'm a little disappointed in that, but I think the overall thing that they're trying to convey and trying to do actually does make the gameplay a little bit faster in that way, and you still are satisfied with those kills when you get them, especially when you get the very specific ones like jumping down on an enemy and stuff like that. So a little bit upset or sad that the kind of traditional glory kill system isn't there, but it feels really good still.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Colt. You go ahead.
I missed the Doom Eternal glory kill system because I think you had at least 4, maybe 5 different animations, depending on if you were looking up, middle, or top, or you were approaching them while they were behind you, or their back was to you. But what Doom Eternal did was you waited until an enemy was flashing, you ran in, and you were protected during this 3 or 4 seconds of an awesome animation that could get tiring after a while. But they did make the glory kills here much quicker. I don't feel like they're as creative looking. And I don't have a memory of seeing a bunch of different glory kill animations. But like Khalif said, you stun them, you come in, and you immediately dispatch them because enemies are still trying to kill you, and you're not safe during that time.
So now we have Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, and Doom the Dark Ages. Granted, you've only played a preview. Where are you feeling this one's going to land on the Doom scale, Khalif?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I mean, for me personally, even having just had 2 hours with it, it's really high. I like to see innovation in a way that changes not only the way you think about the traditional IP, but also how it kind of conveys the ideas that the team is looking to implement, if that makes sense. It feels like the things that they were trying to solve for in comparison to the previous game, they're nailing all of those parts so well, alongside more exploration, or alongside kind of more environmental puzzles, and just like breadth and depth of the way that they had thought about a lot of the systems that they implemented, like the power-up systems where you have your when you're leveling up a weapon, you have multiple options in which you can pick and those are like a toggle. So you don't have to just say, I'm going down this one path of a tree for a weapon. You can switch those things on and off at will when you're going into different kind of battles, when you get to places where you can level up, which I think is really smart. I think the ideas around difficulty and the difficulty sliders that we should definitely talk about, that is really, really well done in a way that changes the way you want to play this game and adds a ton of replay value for anyone who loves to go back in and play games like this. So for me, it's probably at the top of my list right now, like in terms of games that are in that lineage, because of all the smart decisions and because of what they're trying to do.
Well, hold on that. Tell us more about the difficulty slider. I'd love to learn more.
So, one of the things that they had talked about in previews was, if you are a person, because I think when most folks think about difficulty sliders and changing parameters like that, they think immediately just of accessibility. Mm-hmm. My thing with this was, when they talked to me about it, they were like, oh, no, wait a minute. Like, this can fundamentally change the way you play this game from a lot of the stuff that Colt and I were talking about, especially around like melee combat and parrying and things like that. Like, if you slow down all the projectiles on the map, which you can do, it changes the way this game plays in a much, much different way. So, a lot of really smart decisions made by the team to get those things to kind of really coalesce in a smart way.
I forgot. I already made the best settings for Doom: The Dark Ages. I tweeted this back on January 23rd. Difficulty: I'm too young to die. Damage to player: 1%. Damage to demons: 3,000%. Enemy projectile speed: 1%. Enemy aggression: -2.
Reasonable.
Parry 1 to 1,000. Days duration: 300.
Yep.
Game speed: 25. Resource values: 200. Obviously a joke tweet. If you know
journalist mode, baby.
Yeah, journalist mode, exactly right. But in all seriousness, having that level of granularity to the settings, it's really, really fun.
Yeah.
Colt, what do you think about having all of these options to choose from?
I think it's great. A lot of people like to complain about bringing in easy modes or changing difficulty modes.
Not me.
People like to flex and say, oh, if you can't beat Elden Ring or if you can't play games that are, that you shouldn't have a difficulty slider. But people are different. I have friends who will absolutely ramp those things all the way to the right. Mm-hmm. That will speed up projectiles. They'll make a glass cannon build, and they'll love that. And I might bring some things back so that I can enjoy the game, like the Marauders. Like the Marauders stopped my completion of the Doom Eternal DLC. Huh. I couldn't finish it. The Marauders and some other stuff, but yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I'll mess with it. The projectiles, like when you're in basic combat and like there's like spread shots coming out, it's very much like the old classic Doom, like they showed in the direct. Maybe I will speed those up because you can walk past those, and the green projectile will come at you so slow. You can like bring up your shield. You have plenty of time to bring it up, even with a lot that's going on. So I can see people loading up the game and feeling like, oh man, there's a little bit of sweetness I can tune here. So I'll probably be in there knocking a couple things up a tick or two and seeing what kind of experience I can get.
And I didn't get your response about how it stacks up. Doom 2016, Doom Eternal, and Doom: The Dark Ages.
Gosh, they're so good.
Where do you feel it fits?
I've seen a lot of people agree with what I'm about to say lately, but a lot of people have been saying they go back in 2016.
I don't believe that.
Yeah, I can't be the case.
Yeah.
I've been seeing a lot of people say that 2016 is kind of eked up to their favorite over Eternal. As amazing as Eternal is, I loved it. And I feel like Doom: The Dark Ages is right there. I thought maybe you were going to ask us for a number, and that like really makes me start to sweat. But
No.
yeah, it's the Triforce. Doom is this new Triforce is amazing, and Doom: The Dark Ages. One thing that Khalif and I didn't mention is there are these really great cinematics and characters. There's this like kingly character that is kind of working alongside the people that are helping Doomslayer, and so there's this story and cinematic thing that I don't feel is really there in Doom Eternal. There's a little bit in 2016. So with the pacing breakup that keeps everything fresh and moving and exciting, the ability to tune the game how you want, cinematics that look amazing, that actually tell a little bit more of a story, then you can probably assume by that, once you see the previews and see more gameplay, that Doom the Dark Ages is going to be really highly rated up there, and everyone can kind of guess about what number it's going to land in at that point. And I'm right there with that.
You said the magic word story, and that was my next question. It's medieval inspired, obviously. Like, we're going to a totally different time period. How does that impact the enemies you're fighting, the weapons that you're using? Do you find that you're using older versions of classic weapons, or has it changed anything in that respect, Colt?
The weapons look like the plasma weapon looks different from the past couple of games. So I'm like assuming this is like this is like Mark 1 of each weapon. So kind of the story that you get for just a moment in this preview build we played was that all hell is broken loose and humanity is coming together to figure out what to do. And they're like, unleash the Doomslayer. And this king is like buff and he's got the armor on and everything. So there's this real tone of this is back in ancient times. They don't know what to do. They're unleashing everything they've got. They've got all their big weaponry out, and they're sending out the most dangerous person in the universe to. And that's kind of how they refer to him. He's this atomic bomb. Like, are they going to, like, this is the last ditch effort, is to send the Doomslayer out to save humanity from hell.
How did you feel about the story additions, Khalif?
Yeah, I agree a lot with what Colt was saying. I think the parts that came through for me was, this is the first time I think the Doomslayer has been like a sympathetic character, which I think was really interesting in the way that they're kind of portraying him. It feels very, yeah, I know, right? It's like, oh, Doomslayer, oh,
the guy who puts skulls into a gun and then shoots it out
and
to kill
he kills everyone.
Yeah.
He kills everyone in sight. But I think they're trying to do something really interesting in terms of giving the Doomslayer a little bit more humanity in some ways, and also kind of seeing how he is basically like a used weapon, right? He's not a person in the beginning of where we're having this part of the story. He kind of gave me a lot of Weapon X vibes in those ways, bringing some X-Men lore back into it. But I like what they're doing with the story. I think the cutscenes are really smart. You know, having a lot of that stuff voiced changed a lot of the conversation. Although Doomslayer is not voiced again, which makes sense. And it made me really excited to see, like, what are they trying to do in this world where, you know, what's going to happen with Doomslayer? What are they going to actually is he going to break out of being the ultimate weapon that people are just going to use him for whenever they need a job done? So I think they have a good foundation for what they're bringing in terms of story.
Were there any moments for you? I mean, Colt already admitted to making several mistakes, but for you, were there any combat moments that felt overwhelming, unfair, or for the most part, pretty well balanced?
I think it felt pretty well balanced. I think I also missed the memo about the big shielded dude at first. I was like, this dude won't die. What the hell? And environmental stuff, I think, was actually one of the things that got me stuck a little bit, because there are some puzzles in the space that I think are really important. And that's when you start to think about verticality in that way. That's when it becomes less horizontal. You have to be looking up and around you a lot to kind of figure out how to finish some of those puzzles and get through some walls that you weren't able to get through.
Like before. Throwing your shield up at a switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I had one of the techs, the community manager came over and I was like, I put off my headphones. He goes, you need help? And I said, I've got everything. I've turned on all the switches but one. And he's like, look over there. And there was like it's like an armoire. He's like, you're supposed to break that. And there's an opening behind there. And I thought that it was kind of weird. There was no contextual thing that says break this at all. Like, I know, you know how video games, sometimes they'll put a white outline around this. Like, hey, come over here and break this.
Yeah.
And I didn't go, oh, duh. I was like, well, they could have done something there. I really hate it when games are like kick, you know, big button that says kick.
Yeah.
But I got stuck there that one time.
I'm just imagining your session. It's like Marty Stratton shows up. Hey, you're doing that wrong. This assistant shows up. And then Phil Spencer's like, what are you doing, Cole? You know? Todd Howard shows up for some reason. Yep. Guides you along to the next thing.
I want Todd Howard to go to be my walkthrough partner.
Yeah, that would be great, right?
I mean, it's a pretty big honor to say, hey, Marty Stratton showed me how to get, because I'm too dumb to play games.
Yeah. Well, if there were ladders, Todd would have known what to do. So,
you see that ladder? You can climb it.
Yeah. any major shifts in the health, ammo, shield, like that must have
Yeah.
changed, right?
A little bit. Colt, you have more information of that because I that was the thing I was super paid attention to. But if you have thoughts on that,
I wasn't either, but I did notice you don't have to chainsaw an enemy just to get health back or ammo. What my memory was, there was a lot of health potions around to just walk and pick up or break stuff to grab them. So I don't remember there being a mechanic that you have to go kill to get your stuff back. So that felt a lot better because then you're not, I don't know, you just kind of have to keep an eye out to keep your gear up to snuff. But yeah, it's not bad. I didn't mind that.
So performance wise, I know it's a preview build. It's running, I assume, pretty much lock 60 on console and whatever you want it to be on PC.
yeah, I think we played on some pretty beefy PCs. I think they were all NVIDIA'd out.
We got some 4070s in there.
Probably. Probably. I mean,
Actually, probably.
Because
probably a 5090.
probably 5090 in there, a couple, one or two, maybe a couple 4090s in there. I mean, it ran.
Doom runs on everything, so
Yeah.
the joke could be a 4070 and it would look amazing.
I mean, id Tech is just ridiculous. It continues to be one of the best engines on the planet, but it did feel extremely smooth. Like I never had a problem. There weren't any hitches on my thing. I had like one bug, or I guess our build maybe freaked out once, and that was it. And then rebooted and was back in and playing. But I'm excited. This is a game that I would be playing on PC. Like as good as it looked in that room, knowing I have gear that can run it, like I will be playing this thing on PC because it's going to be really, really good.
Nice. What was your overall, and no issues for you, Colt?
I don't think so. No, other than me not knowing how to get through an armoire.
Well, let me ask you, Colt. So, like, what was your favorite thing, and what was one thing where you're like, I'm not sure about that?
I'm not sure about the Titan because it felt kind of slow, but they gave us, it felt like 3 minutes. I'm pretty sure it was about 15 minutes of that level. It could have been less. I'm sure there's some cool stuff to do there, but my guess is like how many Titan levels are you going to have in Doom Eternal? Like maybe 3, maybe, but that's not a big deal. What did I love the most was probably the church bell parry system that just always made you feel like you were getting in the face of the enemies. And when we talk about stand and fight, you said, when you see those big enemies, don't circle strafe, don't back up and put distance, stand your ground and fight. And that's what they told us in the briefing. And so I remembered every time like that heavy green attack came, I would parry it. They would flail back, and then I would just start pounding on them and shooting them and filling them full of bullets and breaking off armor pieces and waiting for the next parry. And the stand and fight thing felt really, really great because in the other games, you were just kind of whittling them down until you could get that glory kill, but you were really chopping down a giant tree. And I love that part of Doom: The Dark Ages.
Khalif, same question to you. Your favorite thing and something you felt could be improved.
Favorite thing were the siege missions. I think those big open world spaces are exactly what you want from a Doom game, and they're really nailing that stuff and being able to kind of, and I know Cole, when we were playing, we weren't in the same session, we were in different days, but I think a lot of folks who were talking about their favorite part of the game was how far you could move with your shield when you're bashing somebody. But you can travel pretty far with that thing, and even up to enemies who are above you. So the siege missions are my favorite. Those feel really, really good. My least favorite was the Titan missions. I think they didn't feel that great in terms of overall feel yet. I think they needed to be a little bit faster in terms of movement and how that feels. So I'm hoping, at least in this iteration, that we have a little bit less of those missions in the big game. But if they tune that stuff well and make that feel a little bit more robust with more enemies, you think you need more things to fight, then I can be on board with it so far.
Well, that sounds great. I am very excited for this game. It was great getting to check out the B-roll and see what they're bringing to the table this time. I can't wait to play it. It's honestly one of my most anticipated games of the year. Mm-hmm. And on that note, I think we'll end there. And I just want to say it's really great to see you both. It's been a while. Colt, great to see you. Ka, great to see you. Your previews are going to be live by the time this goes up. Khalif, where can people find your work?
Yeah, check it out. Check out Spawn on Me stuff on YouTube and Spotify. You can youtube.com/Spotify. I'm sorry, /Spawn on Me. And then Spotify, you can find the show there. We have our previews up at Embargo and more stuff along the way.
Colt?
Yeah, you can find me at Colt Eastwood on YouTube and Twitter, where I'll share the preview. I'll do the best to give you a great production so you can kind of get a feel like you're actually playing the game. So I think it's really important, and I hope you guys enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to it. A lot of good games this year, and Doom the Dark Age is just another great crowning achievement. I can't wait to play it.
You both always do such great work. Thank you so much. And for more on Doom the Dark Ages, you can stick around here, check out their stuff, and just stay on the internet. Thanks for watching, everybody. This interview is brought to you by people just like you. This first launch on Patreon and to YouTube members, so a big thanks to them for backing. If you would like to do so, you can go to patreon.com/SafeStatePlus or become a member here on YouTube. Of course, an extra special thanks to Christopher Eddy, Inner Machine, Philoroni, Spingetter889, Ares EMS, and all the backers. This show isn't possible without you.